Hello there. Thank you for stopping by the channel. I've got an interesting comparison today. It's a comparison that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's a comparison that I wish had been out there when I first got started in competition PCC. In my right hand is the JP GMR-15. Okay. This is, and I'll go into a little bit more depth on each of them. This is JP's AR9 platform, direct blowback, pretty straightforward, common system. This is my JP-5. JP-5 has a roller delayed system. And if you're familiar with the MP5, it's got exactly the same kind of locking mechanisms in there that cause that roller delay. What I'm going to dive into today, if you're getting started, brand new as a competitive shooter, should you start here or should you start here? We're going to have a look. Now, both of these rifles have been cleared. Let me give you a little bit of explanation, and then we're going to pop into the shop. I'm going to take it apart, show you the bolt carrier group, and just kind of show you how the action works on each one. Then we're going to look at some footage from the range and get a really good look at what that was and look at some data for the Mantis, and we'll take things from there. Okay, first of all, the GMR-15. Like I said, direct blowback system. And most people, when they first shoot an AR9, they're a little bit surprised by the amount of recoil it is. They think, oh, it's a 9 millimeter. There's not going to be any recoil there. But if they've just fired an AR-15 and then they fire this, they're like, kind of felt the same. And they're surprised that a 9 millimeter handgun round ends up kicking out as much recoil as a 223 or 5.56, right? So there's a few different reasons for that, but primarily it's just the design of the system. The direct blowback system is very simple, which makes it very reliable. It's widely considered the most reliable system for a 9 millimeter rifle platform. But there's some things you can do to mitigate some of that recoil. Almost every PCC you see that'll have in 9 millimeter, there you can see that hat through there. So almost everyone is going to have a decent comp on it. That mitigates a lot of the recoil. The other thing you can do is you can adjust some springs and things in here to really start to slow down this buffer spring that's in here. JP uses a captured buffer called the JP silent buffer system, and it does a phenomenal job of slowing down some of that recoil. And the nice thing is you can adjust it. You can change the springs tension on it. You can add weight or remove weight from that buffer system and really change how this gun feels. Now, I've already made an adjustment here. I put a different spring in here. I put the green, I think it's a 10-pound AR spring on this. And that spring took out some of the snappiness of this and made this gun shoot even better. It's a $10 solution that was highly recommended on the forums that I was in to reduce the recoil on the GMR-15. So I did that right away, and I know there's a noticeable difference. So that helped. It was a very simple fix, very cheap and an easy thing that I could do to reduce it a little bit. Now it's how much can I tune this to feel like the JP-5? Well, let's talk about that then for a moment. This is the JP-5. Again, the rifles have been cleared. The JP-5 looks very similar, other than the awesome paint job. Thank you to Coated Arms again. I'll give them a shout out every time that comes up. Coated Arms in Tempe, Arizona, did my paint job here, and I love it. They do incredible Cerakote work. The comp on this one you'll see is a little different. It's ported up on the top, so that changes a little bit how that's just designed to keep that muzzle down a little bit more, which I found it very effective. You can tune this rifle, and when we get into the shop, I'll show you a little bit how that tuning works. But you can tune this to change the amount of delay that happens. Basically, the amount of resistance that's here in the action that holds and delays that bolt carrier group from launching backwards when the round is fired. It's incredible how much difference that makes when you're shooting a 9 millimeter. And then in the buffer spring, again, the same kind of thing. Very adaptable and changeable in here. A lot of weight difference. I believe on here right now I think there's 2 stainless and 1 tungsten. So I've played with that weight a little bit to tune this down exactly to the ammo that I'm shooting. And in the comparison video that we'll do later on the range, exactly the same ammo is used, wanted to get a real apples to apples feel between the two. So with a gun that's here's the question we're answering. With a gun that is over 3,000, okay, is this where a brand new shooter, somebody who's just getting into competition shooting, should you just step up, buy once, cry once, and step into the step into the JP-5? Or should you start out with the GMR-15 and start and learn and cut your teeth on competition here? That's the question I want to answer. Let's go into the shop.
Okay, we've moved into my gun room. Going to be sitting here at the shop. We're going to look at each bolt carrier group, how that works, what the spring looks like, what the setup is, and we're just going to compare the two actions and exactly how they function. Let's start with the GMR-15. GMR-15 comes apart just like an AR. Here is the bolt carrier group. Pretty heavy, stainless. Obviously needs a little bit of cleaning here. Let's get some. Fired this out on the range just yesterday, so needs a little bit of work, but okay. It's mostly about the weight and it coming back into the spring system here. So you can see on this gun, there's got a significant amount of weight back here to try and take a lot of that load. These look like tungsten here and stainless here, so there's some real weight there that's slowing that down, but it's a short stroke, doesn't go back a long ways, and this weight really slows that down. That's really all there is that's handling and mitigating that recoil, is that spring and the weight of the bolt carrier group, okay? Other than the comp that's up on the front of the rifle here, that's a very, very simple system. Okay, let's have a look at the JP-5. Okay, the JP-5 is a little bit different. Let's start here with the spring, because I don't have a tungsten on there. It's all stainless. Okay, so here is the spring, and it's exactly the same setup. Just a little, fight me a little bit. So it's pretty light coming back here. Spring has been adjusted exactly to fit the ammo that I'm using. So a lot of adjustability here. You can add weight, you can remove weight. You can really make this tune exactly the way you want. I've got a whole bunch of tungsten and stainless options, and I've just found right now I'm running S&B 115s, 124s shoot out of it really well as well, but I've got a whole bunch of 115 that I was able to purchase in bulk, and so that's what I've tuned it to. That's keeping my competition costs down a little bit. Some cheap ammo, which is nice. But I like the S&B. It seems to run pretty clean. So here is the bolt carrier for the JP-5. Now you see this is a dramatic difference from what we were seeing on the GMR-15. So it's lightened. Okay, it's heavy up front here and all this is, but everything else has been lightened down quite a bit. Let's take this apart and have a closer look. I'm going to slide this off to the side here. You can see when this gets pushed back, see those rollers kick out? And when there's pressure here, these rollers are really pinned out to the side. So as I squeeze that, they come forward. So when this blows backwards, it's here. When the shot is fired, those rollers pop out and they cause a delay that has to be overcome. That pressure has to be overcome, and a lot of energy dissipates there and doesn't make it back into your shoulder for recoil. Let's have a look at how that works. This rotates and just pops straight off of here. So you can see there's a spring here for the extractor. And really everything else in here is all the mechanics built around that roller delay. This is a locker, is what this is called. This is a locking mechanism. I actually have a really aggressive one in here for right now. This is the 55 degree. The guns ship with an 80 degree, okay? So here are the different lock pieces that I have that change the delay and the recoil on the JP-5. So let's dive in and look at them a little closer here. So this is, as I said, this is the 55 that I have in here right now. Now, this is pretty extreme. I think the lowest number they make is 50. The gun ships with the 80. And the reason the gun ships with 80 is this will shoot just about any ammo. And for the casual shooter that's not really trying to tune their rifle, you go grab any factory ammo off the shelf and it'll fire just fine out of the JP-5 with that 80 degree in there. But let's say you want to start shooting really light rounds. Let's say you're shooting purely steel challenge, so power factor isn't a big deal, nothing you're worried about. You want to start shooting something that's really, really light. You could dial this up, right? So you could get a hold of a 90, I think they go up to 120. So you could change this and get some really soft shooting ammo and get it to perform to your liking. Now, to me, for my purposes, because I'm trying to shoot fast, I don't want something that's really going to slow things down. I want a quick, I want quick recoil, and I've found that having the 55 in there makes things really quick for me. So here's what this one does. There's the 80. I shoot the 55. This is designed for hot ammo. So the lower you go, the hotter the ammo can be, and it'll mitigate more of the recoil with that delay. So for me, I overcome the action overcomes that really quickly. I've lightened up the recoil spring and I get a really quick return, and I'm comfortable with this. Now, I may tune this a year from now. I may be looking back and going, Danny, you were an idiot. You should have been doing this a whole different way. But for right now, the way that I'm feeling, I have dialed this in for my 115 SMB, and it shoots like a dream. It's like shooting a 22, okay? And that's incredible for me. So I'm a fan of how I've tuned this to the ammo for now. But the beauty is, I've got a system here that I can change, I can tune, I can change things in the future. If I want to start shooting, their Supervel makes a PCC Blitz ammo. That's awesome. I just had some feed issues with it. It was probably, I had it tuned different. It might have been a mag thing. I've got a buddy that was having some mag issues with the Supervel ammo. So whatever it was, I switched off of that and just went to something cheap that I could buy in bulk from a local shop here that I love. And so I've got it tuned to that, and like I say, it shoots great for me. Okay. But there's these 60, 70, and 80 options here that I have. So if I ever switch my ammo or I want to get a little different feel out of my gun, I've got a lot of flexibility there. Now, how does it do that? Let's have a look at the two extremes here, and I'll try and show you here. Because when it goes into the gun, like when I first started hearing about this, I thought what it was doing was changing the angle that it sits here. Right? I thought that you'd see this and see like an 80 or 90 degree, and that the 80 degree would be, real close to like almost a 90 degree angle, and the 55 would sit a little different, maybe like this. I thought it was affecting here. It's not. Okay. What that's affecting is the shoulder and how this shoulder is shaped on the cam here, where that comes past. Okay. So here's the 80. You can see, man, I hope you can see. Let's start with this one. It's almost a perfect flat surface. Get out of the shadow that's there for some reason. It's almost a perfect surface here. Okay. That's just almost a 90 degree angle. Now, let's look at the 55 and really see the difference in the extreme there. See how that's way more rounded? There's like almost a second shelf, but causing more of a delay on the cam as it comes back. Now, when you're tuning this, there's one major thing to look for. One very simple thing that you can kind of keep your eye on as you're tuning your gun, and that is, how far are your casings ejecting? As long as they're coming out, 3 or 4 feet coming out of the gun pretty good, you're not going to have many reliability issues. The risk you run is if you slow that action down too much and it starts to have failure to extract. And if those rounds are just barely dropping out of the action, you got to change the way that you've got it tuned. So that's the one thing to really keep an eye on. And then it's just a matter of running it, testing it, and making sure you're familiar with your gun. So that's the difference on how the action itself functions on the JP-5 versus the direct blowback GMR-15.
So we've been in the shop. We've looked at what those lock pieces can do to slow down that recoil on the JP-5 and really mitigate a lot of that pressure. Let's go out on the range. We're going to compare these two rifles kind of side by side. We'll look at them in slow motion, let you see a little bit, and then we're going to dive into some of that Mantis data and look at what the recoil is actually doing between the two rifles so you can really see the difference in performance on a tuned JP-5 versus a slightly tuned GMR-15. Let's have a look. So let's start with the GMR-15. Now, all of this data was pulled over about 100 rounds going through each gun. And what we wanted was just a decent data pool so that we could really look into that data and see what's the recoil really doing. I know what it feels like, but my feeling and your feeling and how that actually is registering for the shooter can vary a little bit. Now, there's no shooter that's going to shoot the GMR-15 and then shoot the JP-5 and think, yep, the GMR-15 is lighter. And I mean, unless the guy has totally messed up his JP-5. But how big is that difference really? The math will tell us. So the first number we're going to look at here is muzzle rise. You can see the GMR-15 muzzle rises 2.96 degrees. So that's about 3 degrees muzzle rise. Not bad at all, right? The next number we're going to look at is recoil angle. Okay, so recoil angle is coming off of dead center. Positive numbers are going to the right slightly, negative numbers move to the left slightly. So if it said negative 10 degrees to go extreme, that would be moving significantly to my left as the shooter. If it said positive 10 degrees, that would be going significantly to the right for me as a shooter. The recoil angle average consistently was 2 degrees on the GMR-15. So it's moving 2 degrees to the right on average. Okay. The next number is recoil width. And that recoil width was 1 degree. This isn't an average. This is how far the variance was off of that 2 degree mark. It was 1 degree in variance, which means one time it might recoil 1.5 degrees. One time it might recoil 2.5 degrees. That's a 1 degree of variance on that recoil, all centered around a 2 degree recoil average. Okay, so very little variance in that, but 2 degrees off of center. Then we looked at our splits. So the split time over 100 rounds averaged, and what we were trying to do is we ran it in 5-round bursts. And then we took those 5-round bursts and we looked at the split times there. That split time came out at an average of a quarter second, 0.25 seconds. So what that means is the splits were about 0.25. Now, not going for world record here. We were shooting at about 20 yards on a C-zone style steel plate, and we were really trying to throw out misses. So if there was a miss, we threw out that data so that we really had accurate data on what it took to shoot the gun accurately, and it averaged about a 2.5 split. Now let's look at the JP-5. On the JP-5, the muzzle rose 0.38 degrees. Guys, less than half a degree in muzzle rise on the JP-5. Now, that's the recoil, that's some of that. It could also be a little bit that ported comp at the end is ported up, so that's going to keep that muzzle a little flatter, so that probably plays a part in there as well. Now let's look at the recoil angle. The recoil angle was 0.4 degrees. So less than half a degree off to the side in that recoil. So it doesn't drift very far at all. And the recoil width on that, so how much does that vary? 0.09 degrees, less than a tenth of degree variance. So it came back, it came to zero point 0.4 degrees, and it might have been 0.3 degrees, and it might have been, actually, is less than that. It might have been 0.39 degrees, and it might have been 0.41 degrees. Even that's double what it was. But it's a very narrow variance. It's very consistent recoil that you're getting at that 0.4 degree to the right. So I'm not having to do a whole lot of recovery or adjustment because it's predictable every single time to my body where that recoil is going to be. Now let's look at the splits. The splits on this, again, adjusting for accuracy, 0.195. So a little less than 2, okay, a little less than 0.2 seconds between each shot, accurate at 20 yards on a C-zone metal plate. So in order to maintain that accuracy and ensuring that we were getting a hit every single time, we were looking at about 0.2 seconds, a little less than. So comparing the two, you can see the muzzle rise is significantly different, okay? Almost 3 degrees in muzzle rise, which again, guys, isn't much. But when you're splitting hairs here and you're getting in competition and you're talking about fast split times and you're really trying to move and transition target to target, that 3 degrees can make a difference. 3 degrees versus 0.38 degrees. The recoil angle, again, 2 degrees off of zero to the right or 0.4 degrees. Okay. Again, a tiny little variance, but a more consistent at the recoil width. Again, it varied a whole degree on the GMR-15, and on the JP-5, it's 0.09 variance, 0.09 degrees in variance on where that recoil was. So that recoil width was really a narrow channel, super predictable every time, and a little bit more violent on the GMR-15. But again, guys, these are small numbers. We're comparing Michael Jordan and we're comparing, I'm not going to throw LeBron James in there. We're comparing Michael Jordan and the second best player to ever play the game, whoever that might be. But in that comparison, the difference isn't going to be that big between those two, between the number one and the number two. It's a small variance. So the question becomes, as a new shooter, if you're looking at picking up a PCC and stepping into competition, which gun should you buy? I'll tell you what I wish I had done. I wish I had started with the GMR-15. Now, I wish I had started with the GMR-15 because I started with the SIG MPX. The SIG MPX, it was a great gun. It shoots soft. It has its strengths, but the maintenance that it took for me to get into that shooting and really to keep that gun performing at where I needed it to perform, I finally got fed up with it and moved over to the JP-5 because at that point I was ready to go all in and I was really ready to make an investment. And I know I'm having fun. This is a hobby that I'm going to continue to grow at. It's something I want to excel at. I'm competitive. I want to compete at the highest level. JP-5 was a logical step for me. But I wish I had purchased, if I had known about the GMR-15 and if I had known about this comparison in my life, I wish I'd bought the GMR-15 instead of the SIG MPX. Why? The ergonomics are virtually identical to the JP-5, and it would have been a very logical transition for me when it came time to step up to the JP-5. It would have been a very smooth transition, and it would have been like I'd been practicing with a medicine ball that whole time. And now I've got a JP-5. It feels exactly like my GMR-15. It just shoots smoother and nicer. So if I was to make a recommendation, if money is no object to you and spending 3K plus is not a problem for you, get the JP-5. Buy once, cry once. It's a great philosophy. It's an incredible gun, and you will never regret it. But if money is important, if money is a consideration for you, and you don't know that you're going to really go all in and this is going to be a long-term hobby for you, the GMR-15 is a fantastic rifle, and the recoil on it is not bad at all. And you can shoot it nearly as fast as you can shoot a JP-5. And then once you've been in the sport a little while and you decide you're ready to make a bigger investment and you want to step up and get that JP-5, you will recognize and understand the performance and you will see your shooting accelerate as you move from one to the other. I wish that had been the path I was on, and I think that's the path that I would recommend for most new shooters. Now, you just want to buy the nicest gun? Man, jump in, grab the JP-5, and you will never look back. There's your comparison. JP-5 versus GMR-15. Which JP rifle is right for you? Comment below, ask some questions, comment, subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the channel. Thanks for stopping by.